let's talk about overlanding for a minute because we haven't talked about overlanding in a while. And I have 17,000 more miles of experience in overlanding. And yeah, I'm going to call it overlanding, even though most of it's tarmac. Uh, I've gotten into some shit in the last month, so I got dirty. And I am camping primarily. I still get a hotel or someplace with a shower as often as I can, but I think probably my record is 10 days unsupported. Well, by unsupported, I mean I didn't stop at a campground or go to a hotel. So that's a lot easier to do up north. Pretty much anywhere you can pull over safely and fit your rig, you can sleep overnight without anybody harassing you. Might wake up and find a bunch of people parked around you doing the same thing, but that's kind of the rules of the road up there is you can rest wherever you need to do it. So that's cool. Anyway, so I did a lot of overlanding. I've cooked on the road. I'm still cooking food I brought with me from Missouri, frozen 2.5 months ago. So not much of it, but a little bit of it. And I try to grill every night. I was a little spoiled when I was up in Fairbanks because I was staying at basically a B&B, and most of the time. I did do 8,000 miles while I was in Alaska. That's fairly significant, being as there's really only 3,000 miles of roads, at least 3,000 miles of roads that are connected, and I didn't even do all of them. I went back and forth from Fairbanks to Anchorage a lot, like 5 or 7 times. That's 400 miles each way. I went to the Kenai, which adds another 250 miles to Anchorage. But at any rate, I camped all of that, and it was mostly miserable weather, raining, overcast. Um, solar solar sucks if you are in a place that's prone to more than 3 days overcast and raining in a row. And of course, all of Alaska can easily be 3 or 4 days, 5 days of overcast and raining. So I don't know what to do about that. Alternative form of generation, which I have, um, plugging in, which I've done. And I'm going to pause for a minute because we're in road construction. I should pay attention. All right, I'm back. It's about 20 miles later and about 45 minutes later. So I ducked out during the road construction. I try to honor or I try to err on the side of safety when overlanding, just because the miles I cover, statistically it's about time and it's about miles. Well, I spend a lot of both of those on the road, and so I try and uh, be aware. It's an important point with overlanding. So overlanding with the Jeep. All right, I bought the Jeep. It had, I don't know, 6 or 12,000. I can't remember. I spent a week or a couple of months building it out. No, a month building it out. I jumped on the road and went to Texas. Well, I went to Death Valley first. Actually, I went to Arizona first. Then I went to Death Valley. Then I went to Arizona. Then I went to Texas. And I spent a month camping in Big Bend National Park. And then I spent a month living in a B&B up in Bandera. So I was actually on the road for a total of 4 months and 15,000 miles. That was before I bought the trailer. I was living in the rooftop tent with the refrigerator. I bought the big solar battery I bought when I was in Arizona on that trip. So then I came back, spent a couple of months in Missouri, got the trailer, decided the trailer would be more comfortable and easier to haul my motorcycle. Built that out, loaded up, headed off to Alaska. I think I don't know, I was in Missouri for probably 2 months, 2.5, 3, I don't know. Anyway, so the Alaska trip, as mentioned before, has been about 17,000 miles. I've been towing a trailer with a 2023 Gladiator, and the trailer probably, I would say maybe 3,000 pounds. It might be a little bit more than that. The Jeep handles it very well, except it really hurts the fuel economy. That's to be expected with little V6 because you got to wind that girl up a little bit more to get any kind of power out of her. And so if you're towing, especially long grades, um, I'm used to big V8 diesels, so the Jeep is is a whole different experience towing. But it's not wholly a bad experience. Um, the longer wheelbase of the Gladiator makes it a fairly stable platform. The trailer doesn't wag me around very much, if at all. Um, Sometimes I kind of have to remember, oh shit, I have a trailer. The fuel economy, eh, the trailer will pick up a headwind, and so if you're going through the states that have headwinds, and you're going west through the states that have headwinds, like North Dakota or Montana, um, you'll notice that I think I've seen down to 6 miles to the gallon. Now, all that said, the engine has broken in over the last 50,000 miles and seems to be getting better fuel economy. So the only modification I run on the engine is I run like a throttle commander called Ultimate 9, which some pretty lady sold me at an overlanding expo, and I actually kind of like it. I think now that I'm used to it, I would hate life without it. All it is just a little throttle reprogrammer to give you more throttle response. I find that's important in traffic when towing a trailer with a Jeep. So let's see, the overlanding experience. It's easier the further north. Now, Arizona, you can kind of find places to park for free. Um, I hate to pay for parking. Sometimes I have to plug in, but I kind of hate to pay. Sometimes it's $40 a night just to park there, and you can get around that, of course. Part of the idea of being self-contained. Um, you can use iOverlander, or I don't know. You just feel for it. Down south here, I mean, there aren't even places to pull over and take a piss. So I don't know. That said, when I do find a good place to pull over and park, sometimes I'm in a campground. Sometimes I like state parks as an alternative. It's only 10 or $20. Some of them even have electrical if I need it. So, or in the south, I'm staying in parks. Up north, wherever. But anyway, the sleeping experience is pretty good. It's a little cramped with the motorcycle in there. I built a custom bed, blah, blah, blah. It's still a little cramped with that motorcycle in there. So I'm getting a smaller motorcycle. I will replace that motorcycle. For the amount I use it and for what I want to use it for, a little GW200 or a Grom or something like that might be a lot more useful. Maybe not a Grom, but a TW or an XT or even a small XR. But that's on the short list. What else? The trailer is insulated, which is really nice, especially up in the Arctic where I was seeing 30-degree nights, 28-degree nights, 35-degree nights. Um, what we got going on here? Okay, cool. Um, I do have a little propane heater, the little heater buddy, the big one. And I usually, if I turn that thing on, even on low, I have to turn it off. So I did recently buy a carbon monoxide detector for the trailer. I think that's a cool thing. Let's see what else. I don't really cook in the trailer. I cook in the back of the Jeep because that's where the grill is, and I don't really like the food smells in the trailer. If I can avoid that, I will. So um, other than that, it's perfect. I do drop it a lot as far as like pull up to a campsite. I have to unhook it to be able to use the back of the Jeep. So that's become routine. Buying an electric hitch jack was absolutely worth the investment. That was one of the smarter things I've done, for sure. Um, what else? Most of the weight I'm carrying is tools. I wrestle with that because I don't need every tool I brought, but I brought every tool I brought. And if I needed it, I would have had it. I might have even been able to remember where it was and get at it. Half my toolboxes is inaccessible with the motorcycle in the trailer. That sucks. That's not the way it was on the way up, but I did some re-engineering, and that's the way it came out. And smaller motorcycle, damn it. So I haul a lot of tools. Uh, I say my Boy Scout is at full attention. So obviously I have a couple of different ways to put air in tires, a couple of different ways to plug tires. Although I'm very impressed with both the Jeep tires and the trailer tires on this trip, and we'll talk about the trailer tires. Um, I got a really good deal, a really smoking deal from a tire professional, and I'd like to point him out, but I got to get permission first. So we'll talk about that later. Um, anyway, where was I? Maintenance. I've done 3 oil changes, 4 oil changes on this trip. I run full synthetic, whatever Daimler wants me to run, and so I'm not. I don't stress the 3,000 miles or 3,500 miles unless I've been pushing it real hard. Which up in the North Country, I was pushing it pretty hard. So I got 2 oil changes while I was in Alaska, and I'm due for another one now. So I will seek out an oil change here shortly. I like to think the Jeep actually has a turbidity sensor to check the oil, but I think it's just a time or mileage thing. So another excuse to ignore it for a while. Let's see what else. Tires have been awesome. No other real problems. The Jeep probably isn't the most comfortable driving for 80 hours straight kind of vehicle, but it's not horrible. After I get used to it, obviously my ass has spent a lot of time in this seat, and if it was uncomfortable, I couldn't have spent a lot of time in this seat. So it is what it is. You feel everything in the Jeep, which is okay. That's to be expected. I like this suspension, whatever this is. I think it's a little aftermarket. Not real sure. Um, and I like the tires. I'm going to change up the tire. I will, if I don't sell the Jeep, I will change up the tires. But not because I don't like these, but because I want to try something different. Um, what else? Food. I cook. I try to cook almost every day. Even if I'm staying at a hotel, I will bust out the cooking and cook. Sometimes that's just jet boil some water and put some Mountain House in a cup and maybe grab a hot dog. I do have a microwave, but it's really hard on the battery in the trailer until I replace it. So I don't use the microwave. But I do try and cook something. Um, kind of sick of road food. I'm sick of the routine of buying road food. It all tastes the same. Um, even even convenience store food. I still buy a convenience store hot dog or two every couple of days just to keep up with tradition, because I don't like to fuck with tradition. But I primarily cook. I have the grill, I have the freezer, I have the fridge, I have the jet boil. The jet boil gets used every day, at least once, if not twice. So that's the most used thing I have, and it's held up. It's that jet boil had a lot of miles on it before I started these trips, and it is held up. So, plug for hashtag not sponsored jet boil. I have I think it's a Blackstone grill. It's a griddle, not a grill. That's way handier than a grill because I can cook eggs and I cook anything I want on it. So, all right, I got to make a turn off. So stay tuned. I'll be right back. All right, so we were talking about food. I buy my snack. I eat a fair amount of snacks. You know me. You know I'm kind of. I eat carbs and I eat protein, and that's it. Uh, Sometimes I'll dip into fiber if I've had too much Mountain House, but for the most part, I eat 90% protein, and that kind of lets me get away with all the carbs and the all the carbs that I can eat, and so whatever. Um, when I'm driving, I don't eat as much, but I try to stay regular because that's important when you're trying to bust out miles, when you're sleeping where there are no good toilets. Uh, it's important to be regular. So that's a pro tip for overlanding. Find a diet that lets you be that find a diet that operates on a strict timeline and go with it. Uh, let's see what else. Showers. Um, Showers are weird for me, but I've overcome my shyness or my weirdness about showers. And state parks have great showers usually. Some municipal parks do too. This is kind of the one thing I use the reviews on the overlanding apps for is to see how clean the showers are. And I I try and get one every 5 to 7 days, whether that be a hotel, which by the way now have exquisite shower heads, and or like last night it was a state park, awesome shower, got there early in the morning, completely alone. Um, what else? Uh, Hygiene, you know, choose your own level. It might change as you're going. That either direction, you might get more OCD, you might get less OCD. I get a little less OCD when I'm on the road, but um, pushing it like I push it with the mileage and the hours I do a day, I don't. I take less better care of myself that way. Let's put it that way. Um, let's see what else. Boredom. I try to keep myself excited. If I get to the point where I'm bored, I will go to the next interesting place and take a day off. And even though I will seek out interesting places to do that, I usually just take the day off. I don't go to town and go to the museum or anything. Sometimes I'll go, grab supplies or something like that. But Boredom leads to fatigue. Boredom is kind of fatiguing, and fatigue, especially at the end of long days, fatigue is unsafe. And as mentioned before, I try to do this as safely as I possibly can. And I try not to tempt the safety fate. So last couple of days there, at the end of the days, I was, and then dark comes on. So less attentive and it's dark. I don't like to drive after dark either. Uh, it's kind of cool. I used to like to drive after dark, but there's too many critters. I don't see as well in the dark as I used to. If I have to find a destination, like a specific campsite or something like that in the dark, that's a real pain in the ass for me. So I try to avoid driving in the dark, even with my fancy off-road lights, which, by the way, are a necessity. I would like to go back to the old Alaska standard and put some light cannons on here or some light forces to supplement the light bar, just because I want to see further out in front of me on the dark roads out west, especially. But everything else, whatever. The winch, I've pulled out 14 people now, 14 people in the tree with the winch in the last 40,000 miles. So the winch is nice to have. It's worth carrying the weight. Peace of mind, blah, blah, blah. I don't get too crazy off-road because I'm traveling alone. So I've never really used the winch off-road because I just didn't put myself in a situation where I needed it. But it's nice to have. The refrigerator is indispensable. The refrigerator freezer is indispensable. Enough said. Just if you don't have one, get one. Period. Extra power. So I have a big solar battery that doesn't work very well right now. It's just a big battery that I can charge from solar panels on the roof of the Jeep. There's a smaller version of it all in the trailer. And I have less problems with the trailer than I do with the Jeep. And the solar battery in the Jeep, the only thing it powers is the refrigeration / freezer. So we'll talk more about the problems I've had along those lines as we rebuild that for the next journey. But suffice it to say, I've learned a lot about carrying and generating auxiliary power and conserving it and using it wisely and blah, blah, fuck, blah. You know the drill. All right. I'm going to take a break, but I'll be back in a little while if my phone doesn't overheat again. All right, I got about 10 minutes before I have to navigate my way into a UPS store and take care of some business, which, by the way, is a necessary skill on the road. Some really big takeaways from this little rant. The Jeep is a very viable overlanding platform. The Gladiator in this configuration is comfortable, reliable, and just doable and capable. Everybody probably knows that, but I've taken it to what I feel is a bit of an extreme, so I want to kind of reiterate that. Let's see. Oh, when you're on the road, and I learned this long before I did the overlanding thing in the Jeep, but I think one of the most important benefits I get from it is it allows me or gives me an excuse or it motivates me or whatever to be in the moment. Back on the motorcycle, I consider it a safety issue to be in the moment all the time. Absolutely 100% hyper focused, aware on everything within 100 yards of you. And that's a good skill and a good habit to get in just for any reason. But driving, um, when driving, it's a little bit tougher. You get kind of lulled into a little hypnosis. So I try to be in the moment, and I try to appreciate the moment, whether that be beautiful flowers, scenery, a nice road, or just sometimes it's just thank God I get to do this. So obviously, gratitude is an important part of a good attitude, and I try to maintain. I try to be grateful for everything that I see, and I truly try to be aware. So, um, and of course, don't forget it's about the people. You have your perspective. It's beautiful. It's positive. You're grateful for it. You can share other people's perspectives and be grateful for it. You can also call them on their bullshit, but do that carefully. Anyway, till next time, stay tuned and see you at Big Iron if that's where you're going.